Hi, my name's Blake Woods.
The name's Cooke. J. Cooke.
Hi, my name is Nick Lucci, and we'll be examining satirical evidence in the novel.
Alright, the novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald is about a man, Nick Carraway, who has recently moved to West Egg to pursue a career as a stockbroker. At his small, eclectic home, he finds comfort in his life. Across the bay in East Egg, his cousin Daisy Buchanan lives a luxurious life of scandal as she is satisfied with her wealth and status, but unhappy with her husband.
Nick's neighbor, Jay Gatsby, throws huge parties each weekend in hopes of reconnecting with his lost previous love, Daisy. What? As the story progresses, it is just Nick's perception of what is going on between Gatsby and Daisy and the consequences that come of the relationship.
In our presentation, we're going to use the literary device of satire to explore societal flaws in the 1920s. Satire is described as using humor or over-exaggerations to identify different flaws or negative actions in a society. So in our thesis statement is, by examining satirical evidence in F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, the reader is able to depict the flaws in the 1920s society through over-exaggerations and extreme actions. So to begin, I'll be talking about the American dream and the inability to reach or climb one's aspirations in life in the novel. So first off, I'll be talking about Daisy. Each character in the novel really has a goal or a dream. Gatsby's obviously is to marry for love, reach a level of status to which Daisy would truly love him. Daisy is perceived to have the similar aspiration, but she ultimately marries for money, and she marries Tom Buchanan. We truly know that Daisy is in love with Gatsby, as shown on page 76. Here, dears, she gropped around in the wastebasket she had with her on the bed and pulled out the string of pearls. Take them downstairs and give them back to whoever they belong to. Tell them all Daisy changed her mind. Daisy's changed her mind. So this quote truly shows that Daisy doesn't love Tom. Daisy's in love with Gatsby. Yet the next day she goes through with the wedding, and it shows that she's given up on the American dream, or her dream, so to speak. She gives up on love, and that's shown a lot in this novel. Truly, what I'm trying to prove is that it's impossible for one to reach their dreams in the novel, and that's what's shown, as there's a huge struggle for power, greed, and influence. This is seen in Chapter 8 as Gatsby, Tom, and Daisy involved in a conflict in an apartment in New York City. Gatsby is begging and urging Daisy to tell Tom that she never loved him, and Daisy can't do such thing, and it rips Gatsby's heart out, and it shows that his American dream, he's finally giving up Daisy and letting go, and it destroys him to lose his dream. It's truly the mortality of the situation in the society of the 1920s. Gatsby ultimately dies without his love. As shown on page 92, Daisy says, "They're such beautiful shirts," she sobbed, her muffled in the fold. It made me sad because I've never seen such beautiful shirts." Daisy truly loved Gatsby. Gatsby changed for her. Gatsby changed his persona from Gats to Gatsby. He evolved wealth. He changed his persona, and yet Daisy was unable to make a small sacrifice to do so. It destroyed Gatsby, and he was unable to reach his dream. When he dies at the end of Chapter 8 and going into Chapter 9, he never really made a connection with anyone, even though he had this huge party, as we are going to talk about later in the presentation. It's all the morality of the 1920s, and that's what we're going to prove, how we never truly aspire to anything in the novel. No one ever reaches their goals, and how even though this novel is shown to be a tale of the American dream, how everyone fights for their dreams and goals, that's never truly achieved in the novel, and it's kind of a sadness or grieving. And the satirical evidence shows that these over-exaggerations of relationships and beliefs, how none of them are achieved, and that's showing that for the future, Fitzgerald is urging others to follow their dreams, follow their hopes, and not succumb to the situations that occurred to these characters in the novel.
So for my portion of the project, I'm going to be analyzing the human rights and the notion of right versus wrong in the novel The Great Gatsby. For the first part, it's demonstrated by Tom at the beginning of the novel that he is highly racist and derogatory to the African American race. He quotes a novel that he read about how we, as the whites and the dominant race, need to suppress those who are lower in order to prevent usurpation of the white societal hierarchy. He says, "It's up to us, the white people, who are the dominant race, to watch out, or the other races will have control of things." That's from page 18. Wrong by our standards, but right by his. This also demonstrates the right versus wrong aspect in the book, where he believes that it's right to think that way, but as by our standards and by other people's standards, it is not correct. The second example is another quote. "As we crossed Blackwell's Island, a limousine passed us, driven by a white chauffeur, in which sat 3 modish Negroes, 2 bucks, and a girl. I laughed along as the yolks of their eyeballs rolled toward us in haughty rivalry." This demonstrates the issues between white and blacks and how he looked down upon the Negroes as they drove by because he didn't think they should be driving that. So for my second portion, I'm going to be talking about Wolfsheim's sketchy business and the police officer interaction with Gatsby in the middle of the story. Here we see in the book that Wolfsheim's shady dealings with Gatsby are the groundwork of his wealth and allowed him to appear vastly wealthy to Daisy as part of his plan to win her back. It is wrong what he did because this is due to his illegal dealings with the sale of alcohol during and after the prohibitionary period, but it's also right in his mind because he's doing it for Daisy. And Alright, to continue, we also see that the police overlook Gatsby because he has done a favor for the police commissioner and can drive as fast as he wants in the city because he just flashes his car and they let him off the hook. This is most likely something to do with his illegal dealings with the Wolfsheim, and that includes like the alcohol issue. We see that this is wrong because he's exploiting the law, and if the law can't be trusted to carry out its duty, then it's not safe for us to be in that society. Yet Gatsby uses his favor to the mayor in an illegal manner, but is precedented by him and allowed by him because he thinks that he's done a favor and this is okay, but meanwhile it's just making the city unsafe as a whole. Throughout the book, we see that these plot points are accentuated very highly, so we can use satirical nature and we can analyze it through satirical nature, and this gives us the ability to portray it in right versus wrong and look through it the lenses of racism, right versus wrong.
My part of the project is talking about the satirical nature of people's inability to show restraint in the 1920s. Our first point is the importance of class structure and one's perception. Basically, class structure is everything in this novel, including even in the setting. For example, the eggs, the Valley of Ashes, and New York City. My quote for this is from the perception of a woman, Daisy, talking to Nick about her daughter. She says, "I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world, a beautiful little fool," and that's from chapter 1. And basically she says this because she's a woman, and in the 1920s they don't have much voice, and so her perception of society is kind of cynical and not very bright, so saying that a girl's only place in society in this class structure is just to be like a beautiful fool with no voice. Next, we can talk about the luxurious parties and how those were very satirical. They were very satirical because obviously they were so big and at this giant mansion, but the thing is no one knows whose party they were. Like no one knew the host, which was Gatsby, but he was there just waiting for Daisy. But the most satirical thing about these parties is we see how extravagant they are and how much fun people are having, but only to come to the end when Gatsby dies, no one shows up. And there was hundreds of people at these parties, and no one showed up. My last point is about just how society was very conceited at the time and very disrespectful. And I have a quote here from chapter 3, and it's by Nick, and it says, "Americans, while occasionally willing to be serfs, have always been obstinate about being peasantry." So basically this is, people will be willing to be middle class, and like the people that attend Gatsby's parties trying to kind of aspire higher, but no one wants to be the lowest of the low, like the Valley of Ashes. So basically that's very satirical because everyone is acting in a different way than they would just to gain higher class structure, and that's just the way of the 1920s, and Fitzgerald really highlights that in the story.
As said on page 110, Gatsby says, "You can't repeat the past." Why, of course you can. In the novel, Fitzgerald uses
the literary device of satire as a warning to the future society not to create their previous wrongdoings.
What?